great sense of pride and accomplishment, and I thought that that was a reflection of the way many people, certainly in that area of China, were feeling in those days.
Where was that?
It was somewhere out. It was. I know we were driving to Yixing, probably from Nanjing or someplace like that. Then in recent years, I've gone almost every year to China, and gone with Lois Oxenberg, whom some of you know. And we've always started out in Shanghai, and we've then gone many other places, just the two of us on our own. And we've become, I don't know if some of you are familiar with the French term flaneur. Flaneur is is somebody who just kind of wander. And so we have had the opportunity to go to cities and just wander and day by day decide what are we going to do today. And it's been very exciting, and unlike you, I feel very excited about China. I want to go back every year. It is one of the most exciting things that I can do. I love to see the changes. I think clearly the changes, many of the changes are dramatic, not always for the best, but there's a wonderful sense of openness. I remember last year at the American consulate, the Consul General had invited a group of young Chinese Shanghai business people to come and just talk about Shanghai and what Shanghai needed and what they thought. And this was the most open and kind of creative conversation. It was just fascinating. And there are lots of people like that. Lots of that kind of thing going on. Another image that comes back from that same period was down in Xinjiang, which is down near the Burma border, being out in a little tiny rural village, and walking along, running into an elderly woman, and we, through our interpreter, began to talk. And we didn't talk about crops. We didn't talk about anything economic. We talked about our great-grandchildren, and we were very comfortable together. This also was interesting. Their little grass house that they lived in had solar panels on the roof that heated their hot water, and they had a television set. And this was quite different from many of the communes that I had visited many times ago. So as I said, because I have not lived in China, and it's been for any period of time, it's been a very episodic experience, which I hope will continue for many years.
I don't know about the rest of you. I had a college roommate who knew he wanted to be a doctor from the time he was 6 years old and had no other objective in life, and he fulfilled it. And I tried to find some rationale in my own career, and if there is any logic, it's only in hindsight. For example, when I was a child, well, first of all, to talk about it is a little awkward because I grew up learning that children should be seen but not heard. And when 28 years with the foundation, I always felt it was more important to be heard rather than seen. So to be in a position of being both heard and seen is not customary for me. But I do remember that when I was growing up, I was told that if I kept digging in the backyard of our row house in Philadelphia, where I would come out as China. I had no other contact with China until 1971 in New Delhi, India. Some of you will remember the partition of Pakistan at the time and the so-called Nixon tilt toward Pakistan. We got a call at the Ford Foundation office in New Delhi from the local police station saying that 5 days from now there would be a spontaneous demonstration against the Ford Foundation. And lo and behold, 5 days later, down the street came this large mob of people carrying their signs and waving their banners. And as the deputy representative, or I guess I was acting that day, I went out to receive their petition. The petition demanded that we move our office from Delhi to Beijing, 1971. I have a picture, a wonderful picture taken from the roof of the Ford Foundation with that big banner behind it, which I had great pleasure in showing my Chinese friends when I finally went there. I had no contact otherwise with China, either academically, linguistically, or otherwise until I came back from Bangkok to New York in late 1980. And I was in charge of the foundation's programs in developing countries. And as those of you who have any experience with foundations will know, the fun of being with the foundation is giving money away, not administering or pushing paper back and forth. About 6 months before I had gotten back from Bangkok, the trustees had, with great reluctance, approved a special appropriation of $200,000 to enable the staff to explore whether there was any role for the Ford Foundation in China. It's hard to recapture the skepticism with which they appropriated those funds. It was this world's largest communist dictatorship, and while the Ford Foundation was the largest private foundation in the United States at that time, compared to the size and scale of China, it was clearly very, in their terms, too small to make any kind of difference. I inherited the $200,000 and then had the excuse of going to China, as I mentioned, for the first time in February '81, to begin this exploration. That was followed by increasingly frequent visits and an increasing growing realization that came quite quickly that the Ford Foundation could operate in China the same way it had traditionally operated in other countries since it was founded internationally or began to work internationally in 1951. That is, by maintaining small resident staff in those countries and delegating them the responsibility for determining what the Ford Foundation would do within those countries. By '86, the foundation's assets had recovered, the amount of money we were able to spend there had grown, and we sought to open an office. Our application for approval to the State Council had the endorsement of 6 ministry or ministry-level organizations, reflecting the broader range of organizations we had been working with in those few intervening years. It was approved by the State Council within 6 months, and we became the first foreign foundation, I think, certainly the first American foundation to be granted permission to open the office, which preceded by more than a decade subsequent approvals. Reference was made to the tragedy of the Cultural Revolution, which is hard to overestimate. There were few people in China unaffected by the Cultural Revolution. But out of adversity often comes something positive. It meant that the country, the populace, was open to the possibility of change and the necessity of change in a way that few other countries have ever experienced. And if you look if you compare India and China and the difficulty instituting reforms in India is, you can appreciate how dramatic the changes in China were, largely as a result of the Cultural Revolution and that decade-long period of virtual anarchy. The second positive outcome was the Cultural Revolution generation, which consist of individuals now have been playing now for some time, very, very significant roles in the reform and opening of China, were the product of the Cultural Revolution, and they grew up during the Cultural Revolution. They had an acute sense of what life among the peasantry of China really was, those who were sent down the countryside, which were many of them. And they were disabused of blindless adherence to any particular ideology. So the pragmatism that has characterized the reform process owes importantly to that lessons they learned from the Cultural Revolution. Talking about China and the changes there is like the blind man touching the elephant.